Here on an island untouched by time, a primeval dawn breaks, whispering secrets of an age long past. Life thrives in a savage garden, a world of vibrant, untamed beauty, where nature itself is king. Even the smallest creature is a silent witness to this ancient world, a keeper of its magic. But one ruler stands above all, a king born of this land, its sworn protector, its solitary god. In his eyes, the wisdom of generations. On his face, the scars of countless battles fought to keep the peace. Every creature plays its part in this delicate symphony, a balance maintained for millennia. Even in the hidden depths, life flows with a timeless rhythm, pure and undisturbed. His passage is the heartbeat of the island, a force of nature walking in his own creation. It is a kingdom of harmony, where giants graze in peace under the watchful eye of their sovereign. But even in paradise, shadows linger, and a new darkness was beginning to creep into the heart of the island. A sign of trespass, a print that did not belong, the first omen of a coming storm. The ancient instincts of the wild were the first to sound the alarm. Fear had a new scent. It came not as a single beast, but as a plague, a hunter with cold, calculating eyes. They moved as one, a coordinated legion of death, driven by a singular, malevolent intelligence. The king, too, could feel it. A foreign presence tainting his domain, an unwelcome challenge. This was not the work of nature's law. It was slaughter, a message written in blood. To defile his kingdom was to challenge his rule, a challenge that would be answered with fury. And from the shadows, the architect of this chaos observed its work, the Alpha, cunning and patient. Two apex predators, two kings, locking eyes across the valley, a silent declaration of war. And so the king issued his decree, a roar that shook the very foundations of his island. It would be defended. The first blow was struck not with strength, but with speed, a test of the Titan's might. But the power of a king is not so easily measured. It is absolute. They were relentless, a pack designed to harry, to wound, to wear down even the greatest of foes. Yet, in his fury, Kong's strength was matched only by his instinct for battle. There would be no mercy for those who brought war to his home, only swift, brutal justice. He was judge, jury, and executioner, enforcing the ancient law of the island. The skirmish was won, but the true enemy had vanished, leaving only his pawns behind. For the Alpha, this was not a defeat, it was reconnaissance. The king's strength had been gauged. Kong knew this was no simple territorial dispute. This was an invasion. The weight of a crown is heavy, and the king of Skull Island would bear it alone. As night fell, the island held its breath. The hunt had begun in earnest. Under the cloak of darkness, the Vex moved with chilling efficiency, their reign of terror spreading. But the king did not rest. He walked the shadows, a sleepless guardian against the encroaching dark. For a true king protects all his subjects, great and small. It is his sacred duty. He became a maelstrom of righteous fury, a singular force against a tide of predators. The island itself was his armory, and he wielded its power with primal, devastating force. And still, the Alpha watched. Every move, every strike, another piece of the puzzle to defeating the king. This was not a rout, but a disciplined withdrawal. They were an army, following their general's command. He had won another battle, but he was beginning to understand he was fighting not just beasts, but a mind. The wounds would heal, but the knowledge they carried was a deeper injury. He was not invincible. The island was bleeding. The natural order, so long preserved, was being systematically dismantled. Even the island's smallest spirits sensed the coming cataclysm. A choice would have to be made. Power alone would not be enough. To fight an army, a king would need an ally. And so he journeyed to the heart of the island to awaken a power even older than himself. It was a pilgrimage into the sacred, forgotten places, a path no one had walked in generations. But the eyes of the enemy were everywhere, shadows clinging to the king's every step.
Volcanic region.
He had arrived, a valley of slumbering giants where the island's oldest secrets lay dormant. Here, time itself seemed to sleep, clinging to the ancient stone like moss. Before this presence, even a king shows reverence, for this was not stone, but flesh, the first guardian. The wild knew a convergence of old powers was at hand. It was not a challenge, but a summons, a king's plea spoken in the percussive language of the earth. And from the deepest slumber, the earth began to answer. An eye that had witnessed the birth of the island opened once more, holding the wisdom of eons. A mountain given life, a living fortress shaking off the dust of centuries. The king did not command. He beseeched one guardian to another for the sake of their shared home. Its voice was the grinding of continents, the sound of the world in its infancy. And in their primal Kong, the king told his story of the invasion of the broken balance. The old guardian could feel the sickness upon the land, a blight that must be purged. The enemy now knew the island itself was rising against them. An alliance was forged, the king and the Ancient One, power and persistence united. But the Alpha would not be deterred. It would meet this new power with a tide of its own. Together they marched. The earth trembled with their every step, a slow and certain advance of reckoning. Ancient strength against feverish ferocity, an unstoppable force on a collision course with an immovable object. The enemy tested the alliance with a swift probing attack, hoping to find a weakness. But the king was now the sentinel shield, his speed complementing the ancients' resilience. Their claws found no purchase on the living rock. Their fury broke upon its unyielding hide. With a simple shrug of its mighty form, the Titan dismissed the assault with contemptuous ease. The king cleared the way, his partnership with the Guardian already a devastating symphony of destruction. The pack scattered. They had miscalculated, learning a harsh lesson about the island's true power. And from the canopy, a small voice of the wild offered its silent approval. The Alpha understood skirmishes were futile. This war would be won only by total, overwhelming force. A call went out across the island, a summons to every claw and fang. The final battle was at hand. On the king's own ground, they would make their stand. Here, the line would be drawn. From his throne of stone, the king watched the horizon. The tide of death was coming. The Ancient One became a barricade, a living bastion against the coming onslaught. And then a silence fell upon the land, the final dreadful calm before the storm broke. It was a river of teeth and claws, a relentless torrent of hate with the Alpha at its head. The first wave crashed against the Guardian, a futile attempt to erode a mountain. The Ancient's defense was simple and absolute. Every step was a cataclysm. And into the heart of the horde, the king descended like a thunderbolt, his fury unleashed. It was chaos given form, a primal war fought at the very edge of existence. But the Alpha did not fight with rage, it fought with strategy, directing its forces to find a seam in the defense. A new threat emerged, scaling the cliffs to strike at the king from above. But the king knew every rock and crevice of his home. The mountain itself was his weapon. The sentinel protected its ally, its tail a colossal mace sweeping the battlefield clean. Yet the tide was endless. For every 10 that fell, 20 more took their place. They stood together, an island of defiance in a sea of monsters, fighting for the soul of their world. And in that moment of chaos, the Alpha saw its chance, a single calculated strike. It struck not at the king, but at his foundation, a venomous bite to cripple the giant. For the first time in an eon, the Ancient One buckled, and the defensive wall was breached. A roar of pure rage. The king would tolerate no harm to his ally. The duel of fates had begun. Power against cunning, fury against malice. Two titans clashed in a battle for supremacy. The Alpha was a blur of motion, its attacks swift and sharp, 1,000 cuts to fell a giant. But Kong endured, waiting for the one opening he needed to turn the tide. The king's strength was a physical law, and he unleashed it with shattering force. Though wounded, the sentinel fought on, its will as unbreakable as its shell. The Alpha was a master of combat, using every tool at its disposal to gain an advantage. It sought a killing blow, a final decisive strike against the wounded king. But Kong's battle instinct was supreme. He would use his own body, his own pain as a weapon. The blow was devastating. The Alpha, for the first time, felt the chilling touch of its own mortality. Battered and bleeding, the two rivals faced each other, their strength fading, but their hatred burning bright. Realizing its strength was failing, the Alpha played its final card, a desperate final command to its horde. But the old guardian had recovered enough. It would not let its king fall. The intervention gave Kong the single moment he required. No more strategy, only rage. In this single final moment, the fate of Skull Island would be decided. It was a contest of pure primal strength, a king's will against a monster's hate. The Alpha fought, but it could not overcome the raw, unyielding power of the island's true sovereign. With a final, desperate roar, Kong delivered his judgment. The sound of snapping bone was the final word. The usurper fell. The dark intelligence that drove the horde was extinguished forever. Without their Alpha, the pack was broken. The hive mind was shattered, leaving only fear. He stood over his fallen foe and let out a roar of victory that echoed across his reclaimed kingdom. The king had spoken, and the broken army fled into the jungle, their reign of terror at an end. The battle was over. The war was won. The king could finally rest. The Ancient One offered a silent gesture of gratitude, an acknowledgement from one protector to another. And the king returned it. Their bond forged in battle had saved their home. As night fell, a hard-won peace settled over the scarred landscape. A new day dawned on Skull Island, a day of healing, a day of peace. Its duty done, the sentinel returned to its long slumber, its faith in the king restored. The balance began to mend. Life, resilient and eternal, re-emerged from the shadows of war. The smallest of creatures kept watch, a silent sentinel for the island's greatest guardian. He awoke bearing the scars of his victory and stepped out to survey the kingdom he had saved. The land was wounded but whole. The burden of leadership was immense, but he had borne it. New scars told a new story, but the eyes remained the same. Wise, protective, royal. This was not a challenge, but a declaration. I am here, I remain, I am king. And so he stands, the lonely monarch of a savage world. Forever a guardian, forever the king. In the island's darkest corners, life creates its own light. Here, even the skies are ruled by ancient winged sovereigns. The bones of fallen gods litter the landscape, a reminder that all reigns must end. The Alpha, a being of storm and shadow, born for conquest. The sentinel, at rest, becomes one with the land it protects. In the mists, the hunters wait, their patience as deep as the fog. Even in a world of giants, the smallest moments of life hold their own wonder. Every day brings a new challenge to the king's authority. In the creature's mind, a cold calculus of violence was always at work. The island scale is a testament to the raw, creative power of nature. At the watering hole, a fragile truce holds, but the air is always tense. Even a king must have a private moment to tend his wounds. In its eyes, the history of the stars and the story of the earth. The island itself is a predator, claiming the unwary without prejudice. A moment of innocent curiosity between the colossal and the delicate. The alpha's roar was not just a sound, it was a promise of dominion. The fury of the sky tests the resolve of all who live below. But the king is unmoved by the storm. He is the storm. The Vex hunter's every motion is refined for the singular purpose of the kill. A hand that can shatter mountains can also know the gentle touch of a flower. The pack moved through the land of fire and steam, a vision of a primordial hell. For the sentinel, a raging river is but a stream to be crossed. Even monsters have their youth, where the instinct to kill is still a game. The jungle whisperer wears the patterns of the past, a living camouflage. The sun sets on another day of survival, a quiet end to a violent day. Speed against power, a dance of death between two masters of combat. The sentinel uses the very earth as a weapon, burying its enemies. The jungle is their playground, and they move through it with lethal grace. Locked in a desperate struggle where every second could be the last. On Skull Island, even the sky is an accomplice to the hunt. In the morning mists, the world feels new, ancient, and mysterious all at once. The Alpha surveyed its domain of death, the undisputed master of its own dark kingdom. There was a time before the crown, a time of innocence long since lost. And so the Guardian returns to stillness, becoming landscape once more. You are being watched. In the dark, the hunter's eyes are the last thing you see. Life in this world requires a delicate balance of speed, grace, and luck. The sky bleeds at sunset, a beautiful, violent end to the day. In the hands of the king, mere rocks become instruments of annihilation. Every scar on the Alpha told a story of a battle won, a rival defeated. At night, the forest breathes a magical light, a world of silent wonder. Perhaps even a king wonders, looking at the stars, if he is truly alone. To enter their lair is to enter the heart of the nightmare where 1,000 eyes await. The sentinel's passage reshapes the forest, a force of nature that cannot be contained. Defeat is a bitter taste, but it fuels the fire of hatred for the next encounter. After the storm, a promise of peace, a sign that beauty can endure. For a creature of his size, his agility is a spectacle of impossible power. The Alpha's intelligence was its most dangerous weapon, turning the environment into a trap. The island is an ecosystem of infinite and often terrifying complexity. In sleep, the tiny creature becomes a part of the flower, a perfect union. Death can come from anywhere, especially the placid surface of the water. To face one's reflection is to confront the beast that lies within. To look up is to be humbled by the sheer scale of life in this primeval world. On this narrow bridge, there is no retreat, only victory or oblivion. The greatest strength is knowing when to use power and when to show restraint. In the deep, dark unknown, things stir, and the king must face them. The killer's instinct is honed from birth, a relentless drive to hunt and kill. The river is the lifeblood of the jungle, a serpent of water carving through the land. The king attacks from the sky, a surprising move from the master of the ground. Even a savage beast can be mesmerized by a simple, beautiful light. To survive here is to adapt, to become part of the island's voice. In the swamp, the air is thick with decay, a place where life and death are intertwined. They fought as one, agility and might, a perfectly synchronized engine of war. The moment before the strike is the purest form of terror. A moment of peace is a rare and precious thing for a king who never rests. From below, the world above is a shifting ceiling of light and shadow. The Alpha's cunning was to make the very ground an enemy to the king. Kong turned his enemy's trap into his own advantage, a master of improvisation. The fire of defiance still burns bright in the eyes of the weary king. In the Vex pack, there is only one law, the absolute authority of the Alpha. Even the smallest details of this world are woven with intricate, fragile beauty. When defense becomes offense, the Sentinel is a living avalanche. Perhaps even the smallest creature can ponder its own existence. At night, the island reveals its secret magic, glowing from within. A thunderclap of flesh and bone, a shockwave that stuns his foes. Dominance must be constantly asserted, any challenge met with overwhelming force. The scars of war linger on the land long after the battle is over. A king does not just rule, he nurtures. He is the guardian of life itself. Death can pass within inches, a silent ghost in the undergrowth. The guardian returns to its slumber, its ancient duty fulfilled for another age. Teamwork is the key to the pack's success, a deadly coordination of purpose. In this cathedral of nature, the sunlight is a divine presence. These are the hands that hold the fate of a world, scarred and powerful. A predator is never truly at rest, its senses always scanning for threat or opportunity. A moment of stillness between giants, a silent understanding of shared power. Beauty persists even in the most savage of lands, a testament to life's tenacity. To be cast out from the pack is a fate worse than death. A lonely end awaits. Against the relics of the past, the present seems impossibly small. The king's strength is a thing he must constantly test and understand. Below the waves lie the ruins of a forgotten civilization, another of the island's secrets. Defeated but not destroyed, the Alpha's hatred will fester, awaiting the day of its return. The Sentinel's shell is a living history, etched with the story of millennia. Even in sleep, the king is not safe. Danger is a constant companion here. Alone, the hunter is vulnerable. The pack is its strength, its very survival. The mountains stand eternal, silent witnesses to the endless drama below. He found the stories of his ancestors, a legacy of war against the island's nightmares. Even the waters are hostile, but the king's fury is greater than any threat. In this strange world, an unlikely friendship offers a small measure of peace. The sky puts on a show of celestial magic, a rare gift for a violent world. He is the island, and the island is him. His eyes hold the reflection of his soul. The king remains, watching over his savage, beautiful, and eternal kingdom.